You're listening to the Governor's Podcast, which is hosted by school governors, for school governors, and for all involved in or impacted by education governance. On the Governor's Podcast, we have open, honest, and transparent discussions about governance in the UK education sector, sharing and providing insights into the realities of entering the boardroom, sitting around the governing board table, and leaning in.
Hello, I'm Sharon Warmington and I support schools and academies as a governor, governance practitioner and a clerk. I'm also the CEO of the National Black Governors Network, supporting the education sector in diversifying their governing boards.
And it's Olivia D. Hind here, an under 30, unapologetically black female who is changing the face and space of school governance.
And you're listening to the Governor's Podcast.
Okay, let's get into today's topic.
Well, this is a follow-on from the last one.
Yes, we needed a part two.
Yeah, part two, because the last one was about chairs.
Mm-hmm.
This, vice chairs.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a real role?
Ooh.
And I'll say it like that. No disrespect to any vice chair.
Yeah, you're not insulting the people who hold that title.
Absolutely
you're
not.
Questioning the position itself.
Just like how you've got. I mean, we don't really have a deputy prime minister in the country.
But you have deputy heads.
You have deputy heads
in school settings.
In school settings. In America, you have the president and you have the vice president, and the living joke is that it's just like
it's just
a holding
title.
position. It's just
you don't have any power. You don't do anything.
You don't have any power. You don't. Yeah. So that was the reason for my question.
No, but wait, no, it's a good question. I'd say it is a good question because the chair chairs all the meetings. It's not a case of the chair chairs 75% of the meetings and the vice chair. That isn't written in the terms of reference. Based on my experience of committees don't have vice chairs of committees.
No, some do, some don't.
Oh, really?
Yeah, some do. But again, it's if you've got a committee of 3 people,
it's true,
and you've got a chair and a vice chair, it's like, really?
Although what I have experienced is not in all my school settings, but what I have experienced is that if the chair has to send in an apology or is late or delayed to a meeting,
that's obvious.
But someone needs to chair the meeting, so they'll just then it will be assumed that the vice chair does it.
Absolutely.
So in that case, you don't have that awkward silence around the table, like, okay, so chair's not here, and you're doing this side-eyeing thing or not making eye contact. But then
that's usually what goes on in the background, because I remember as a governor, as a parent governor in your school, and also as clerk, if ever the chair is giving apologies, whether it's known in advance or it's last minute, the clerk or the head usually would immediately contact the vice chair.
Oh, if you know in advance.
Yeah, if you know in advance, or another governor, so that you don't have that awkwardness around the table.
Okay. But then that speaks to how governance is coordinated, because I can imagine there are some school settings where you will have that awkwardness. Not everyone is as organised as that.
Absolutely. I, as clerk, try and avoid those moments as much as possible. And as I say, you usually know in advance, because the chair takes not that other governors don't take their role.
But they try to be present every single.
They not only try to be present, if they're going to be absent, they know in advance. It's very rare, only in emergency situation or something, where a chair would just. They're not. Whereas you can get a last minute apology from a governor,
true.
You're not going to get a last minute apology from a chair.
Yeah,
true. Even at committee level, because they recognise with that role comes responsibility.
Well, the thing is, the looking at the chair position, just as we're moving into the vice chair, and what you've just said about diary organizing, I know there's I say a future occurrence, but it happened in the past because the meeting hasn't happened yet, but the communication about the time of the meeting has, where the time of the meeting has been changed to accommodate the commitment of the chair of that committee.
Yes.
So it's almost like with the chair, adjustments may be made to the meeting so that they can be there.
Because otherwise it could, if you know in advance that your chair, there's a clash of meeting dates, you're not going to go ahead with the meeting because you're then setting yourself up for another problem, which is who's going to chair that meeting.
Yeah, and will things be discussed in the way that they need to be as well? Okay, so vice chair, what is the communication like between the clerk and the vice chair? Is a vice chair to you like any other governor?
Like any other governor, yeah, because they don't, I don't want to say they don't have any responsibilities, because they, just like any governor, you do. What I like to do with my vice chairs, the vice chair of the LGB or the governing body, is to sort of coerce, guide, recommend, nominate them to be a committee chair.
Right, okay.
So that they are
chairing something.
They're chairing something, and again, it's part of the overall development.
Right, yeah.
Because sometimes you can have a vice chair who's never chaired anywhere before, hasn't necessarily come through the committee chair route. So I try and take them back to that so that they are getting used to sitting in the chair, and that tends to work quite well. That's good, and I do it through just saying to them, I may ring them or send them an email. You'd make a really good committee chair, especially in August when I'm trying to sort things out.
Yes.
So that you don't hit that September. And if you've got a lot of schools, imagine you're doing 6 or 8 schools, or more, and you've got to, that autumn period is just a nightmare.
Painful.
And you've got to do the same thing 8 times. That's hard. So I remember when I was clerking 8 schools, I would do as many things in advance as possible. And my communication with governors went through the roof because I'd almost like plant a seed.
Yes. Yeah.
And then just sort of, have a think about it. I think you'd be really good, but just have a think about it.
Yeah.
There's no obligation. If a new governor has started and there's a link roll coming up, I will say, what about...
So basically, how you would encourage someone to become a link governor, you do the same with
thing,
vice chair.
Yeah, with chair. Because I recognise that not everybody feels comfortable self-nominating.
Oh, yeah, that's
true. Because they may think, what will people think if I nominate myself? Will they think that I think... that I'm all that, and so you have a lot of self-talk that can put you in a limiting belief situation. So sometimes it takes that nudge, either from a fellow governor.
Have you ever heard anyone nominate someone?
Yeah.
Other than themselves?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And what's that been like? Because does it throw the person off who has been nominated?
You have to, if you're going to nominate somebody, you have to have that conversation with them first. Because,
so is that just courtesy, or is that written?
I would imagine it's written somewhere, but even if it's not, professional courtesy.
Yeah, I think
because you want to avoid that situation around the table.
Whoa, I don't want to do it. No,
exactly.
Yeah. And they feel like they're put on the
spot. Absolutely.
But you wouldn't nominate someone unless you felt like they could do it.
You'd be amazed. Some people might, though. Oh, no, sorry, I cut you. You wouldn't nominate somebody unless, you believe that they could do it.
But it's then just how you perceive yourself versus how other people perceive you. Other people can see you as you're very capable. You seem very confident in the meetings. You seem not commanding, but in a way you're very assertive when you're asking questions and stuff. And so it's almost like yeah, you would be great.
Great,
So
yeah.
then the other person may think I'm not ready, or I can't take on that responsibility.
Right, I haven't got the capacity. And so I know a vice chair in particular who's happy to sit as vice chair, but does not have the capacity to sit as chair, and nor take on a committee chair position, and has made that very clear from the very beginning. And because they are extremely active
elsewhere,
and involved elsewhere. So in that respect, if you've got a chair and a vice chair who is unable to take on or make way, be in a position to take on the ultimate leadership role, as it were, then I would say it's for the chair, maybe with the clerk, because I have those conversations with my chairs on who else around the governing body that you can support and encourage, and you start with the link governor role, you start with the committee positions.
Yeah.
So then when you're
is easing people in.
Absolutely.
Like very much like what we were saying in the last episode in part 1, you're easing people into the levels higher up. That's what you're doing. You're giving them a bit more responsibility each time, or a taste of things, and it's like if they can manage that, then you go a bit further. What I have noticed in some of my own experience is the vice chair can also be quite powerful if the relationship between the chair and the vice chair makes sense, or they balance each other out in a way. Because if you think of a newly constructed governing body, where everyone's new, it's not a case of the people who have been there before and then new blood comes in. Everyone's new at the same time. Maybe the school has recently become an academy, or maybe they've gone through measures and they're coming out, and so it's almost like wiping the slate clean and starting again.
Or it's been an IEB and now they've got the governing body in place. Yeah.
I've experienced that with one of the schools that I've been involved with at a strategic level, where I came in as vice chair because the chair was already selected. And the chair was absolutely ace. I still am in communication with him in other areas. And he was like, I'm not an educationalist. I have no idea what goes on in schools. So then when we were introducing ourselves, like all the new governors, and he heard what I do in terms of my work with young people and students and in schools, delivering workshops and stuff, he was like, don't you think you should be chair? Why have they chosen me? like, is it based on my profile? Is it just based on my professional private sector experience or whatever? So I think the chair in a way felt like having me as a vice chair who had more of an educational hat would make him feel more comfortable in his chair position, because if anything,
it's
Olivia's there.
It's having complementary skills, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Because no one person can have or should have everything, because that leads to vulnerability. Because
and groupthink as well.
But if you've got one person who's got everything, once that person leaves, you've lost everything.
Yes.
So that doesn't make sense.
No.
You want balance right across your governing body. And I think we were talking in the previous episode, it was there and then it went.
Did you just have a vibe like mid-episode? That's okay. If it comes back, then just cut me, and it will sound so random to any of the listeners. But it just flew out the window.
It was
it's
there
gone.
and then it went.
Okay, when it comes back, hold it, because I could be in the middle of a sentence.
I don't even know where to pick up now. Well,
I can kind of just I'll go back into what I was saying, because it may trigger something for you. So what I was saying is that, what you started talking about on the back of what I was saying was that relationship between chairs and vice chairs, and how, no one person has everything. If one person had everything, then it would be a board of one. It would just be a meeting between the head and the chair, or the head and a person, and that's it. But you don't have that diversity of thought, ideas, knowledge, skills, experience, expertise, all of those different things. So it's important when a new vice chair is nominated, that the chair and the vice chair have their own relationship, their own professional relationship, because that also could really stir the conversation or the action towards succession planning and actually implementing it. So it could be a case of if a vice chair's new, then the chair has probably a semi-regular meeting with them just to kind of keep them in the loop of things to some extent.
I think I would look at the term meeting loosely.
No, very loosely.
Because what you've got to be careful of is that you're having meetings within meetings.
Oh yes, of course.
Or meetings over there and that's not a healthy governing
body
either.
I'm probably if I think it through more clearly, maybe at a transitional stage. Yeah, you edit all the time. You edited so well. You closed the document and forgot what the document was about. Like, oh, hit the X. Sorry. But I mean, probably like more at a transitional stage if you know you're handing over then. Probably, because I get what you mean in terms of you got to be careful that the chair and vice chair aren't off having their own meetings and the rest of the board are for what?
Decisions and all that kind of
stuff.
Yeah,
you got to be careful of that.
But do you think that chairs even think about their
vice chairs
exit?
Or their exit?
Do you think that chairs plan for their exit? I don't know any that do.
When you say chair, just so we clarify, because you can be a chair in several settings.
Okay,
I'm talking about local
the main,
governing body,
the governing body, or it's a governing body, or LGB, the chair of the governing board as a whole.
I think I can answer this two ways. I can either say yes, no. There's so many different chairs out there which each have an independent way of thinking things. So what may work for some may not work for others. But I'd say in the main, it wouldn't surprise me if most chairs make a decision, is a reactive decision rather than a proactive decision. Meaning, something has to happen for them to say, I'm gone, rather than them to come into the chair position and say, I'm going to do 2 terms, even if they say, which is still 8 years.
Exactly, and that's the other reason why I think we should have maximum terms of office, because I also think that heads can get comfortable with their chair.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And it becomes then almost like too
clicky.
Yeah.
Can be very clicky.
Too I think too comfortable. And it's not to say that you want to be uncomfortable.
What if the head wants a different chair?
Yeah. Well there's that conversation.
What if the head sees new people coming in and they're like, you know what? I could work with that person better because of the way they think,
right. And that's the thing.
But I'm stuck with this person.
If you I'm stuck. Or if you're a new head coming in to an existing chair, and I do to an existing chair, and that's fine. But if you're trying to implement changes to lead the school in the 21st century, and you've got a chair who has been there for 20 years and
that sounds mad. I'm 27. I don't think you should be a governor in the same school for as long as someone's life.
I can't remember where I was, a meeting.
And when I say life, I mean like a young adult. Yeah. If someone's like 3. Then...
I recently heard a governor was being celebrated for their 25th year of service in a school.
The same school?
The same school.
Okay, let's add context a little bit. Had they changed position?
I don't know. I don't know at that level.
I think there's some exceptions when, imagine, like, if I think about me when I joined a couple of the secondary schools that I've been a part of. It was 3 years ago, so I was 24. Now, 20 years and, I like to change. I like to switch it up, unless I've got a real reason to stay. Now, 20 years from that is me being 44, which is a scary thought, very scary thought. But it's like, I would have to if I was to look at those 20 years, I would have to think of it as, and I probably mentioned it in the previous episode, okay, I do a term as a chair of this committee, and then I do a term as the chair of that committee. So say there's 3 or 4 committees at that school.
You don't.
No, but that's still a lot. I'm trying.
Say,
no. Listen to what I'm saying. I'm trying to break up the 20 years that someone has done and think, could I do it?
No, because you don't want to do a term as a committee chair.
Could do 2 or 3 years.
I would say this is how I break down.
I think it also depends on what type of committee it is.
Yeah, it does. There's a lot of variables in here. But for any new governors listening to this, and when I say new, if you're within your first 12 to 18 months, during that time, just get under the skin of the organisation. Learn the jargon. If you're not from the education sector, then just learn what you can about the organisation and the sector that you're governing in. By year 2 of your first term, take on a link governor role. It's not that it's not difficult, and I'm not even talking about
governor role almost straight in.
You can do it almost straight away, but I'm saying some people may just want that bit of time just to get familiar with things. But so by 3 years in, you should have doing something. You should be doing something that has a bit more responsibility. Yeah. So by the end of your first term, so you've got 4 years in now. If you are staying in that school, if you're a parent governor or a staff governor, then there's the whole election thing, so you may not serve 2 terms. But if you are a governor that was appointed and you are happy to be reappointed, then you're going to serve another 4 years. You've got to be serving, at least nominating yourself for more responsibility to be. That's just what I feel. I mean, I'm in my school and I'm in my 2nd year. And I've just done school finance training because I'm on the finance committee. And I would, in the next, because we've just gone through the elections, by next September, I will be happy to self-nominate, even though finance,
for
I wouldn't say to be the chair of finance.
Oh, I'm not there yet.
I know.
No,
I know you're not there.
You know, reason why I'm not there. Sometimes it's hard to consider. I mean, because you have to also know. People call it knowing your lane as well.
I'll stop you there.
I don't. I'm not saying this is language I subscribe to. No. I'm just saying to give you an idea of the point I'm going to make. Like, for example, there's some areas that okay, with using the example of the school I'm in, you have to go on 2 committees, and I picked something that I knew and something that was a huge challenge. I picked teaching and learning and finance. Teaching and learning, there's still a lot for me to learn, but I could kind of get my head around it really quickly. Finance was like, whoa, let me take it anyway, because I'm sure I will learn a lot, even if I can't contribute as much as I can to the teaching and learning. Now, I know for me personally, unless I have solid knowledge and skills and experience of finance, I have no business being the chair of the finance committee.
I disagree.
Me,
I'm sorry.
Personally.
I know, but I disagree. I know the reason why you are so adamant not to consider being a chair of finance is because of the existing chair of finance.
Of course it is!
Who I know.
Because I give them,
right.
I respect them so much. They are so knowledgeable.
So it's got nothing to do with your ability.
I can't be the chair.
No, you don't.
The way they know finance.
Yes, I know.
The way auditing and this line and that. Nah. You gotta know.
No.
You gotta know where.
No. Stop. I know that is the only reason.
It's not the only reason.
It is the primary reason.
It's a very strong reason.
It is the primary reason.
Yo.
But you cannot go up measure yourself against somebody who has lived and breathed accountancy for 40 years.
Exactly.
No, you can't go up against them in terms of expecting that you're going to be on the same level.
No, I'm not looking to be at the same level.
Hang on, school finance doesn't require that. School finance doesn't require you to be a qualified accountant. It doesn't, and that's the misconception. Okay. And that's why we struggle so much. It's like when Clerk say to me, oh, I hate minuting finance committee. Why?
Why isn't minuting the same? Once you've got the minuting skills, it's just another meeting,
it's because they're talking about finance and they feel that there's a need to type every single figure that comes out of somebody's mouth. No, absolutely not.
No, you don't. You minute the meeting.
You minute the meeting just like you would any other meeting. And that's the thing. So there are mental blocks that we put in place that stop us from moving forward.
Can I?
I haven't finished. So, right.
Go on.
What I don't want is for listeners to think, because I know that it's a common thing where, oh no, finance.
No, I didn't run from the committee.
Hang on. I know, but there are a lot of people
I'm just saying, I'm not chairing it.
Hang on, there are a lot of people, a lot of experienced
don't
governors.
Don't run from the finance committee.
But they do.
No, don't.
Because Because they feel that at some point they're going to be called upon to chair finance.
Oh no, it's still based on nominations.
But if you watch your chair of finance, and you've been there, 3 years now on the finance committee, you could chair a finance committee.
A meeting. Probably a meeting.
Yeah, and how many meetings are there per year?
No. I said a meeting in her absence and any other governor who has been there as long as she has or longer than me. Like, probably a meeting. But I know my confidence levels won't be there.
There you go. It's the confidence, not the knowledge or the experience. No, it is not,
because I think my confidence is attached to me not feeling like I have...
School finance isn't rocket science.
No, and the thing is, I understand it a lot more than I did when I first... I am a lot more comfortable in the meetings now.
Okay, maybe not in the school you're in.
Oh, probably in a different school.
In a different school.
It could be the school I'm in too.
Right,
because
exactly.
the standards are just so high.
There you go.
And I don't ever want to let anyone down. There's that too, which is probably, I don't want to say a drawback of my character or whatever, but I don't want to let anyone down. Because I'll be honest, the Teaching and Learning Committee,
It's your comfort zone?
No, it's not that it's my comfort zone, because I told you, I admit that I was very naive going into that. I had no frigging clue what I was doing by choosing that title.
Did you say friggin'?
Yeah, because I didn't say the alternative. So, I didn't know what it would be like. But then, it's only when I was then chair, and then did my first few meetings, did I then have a conversation with you that made me think, rah! Chair of Teaching and Learning's massive.
It is huge.
But if I had had that conversation with you before, I would be like, should I?
Well, then the principle is the same in terms of finance.
You're trying to convince me now, right?
No, I'm not trying to convince you. I'm just showing you why you've got a mental block. You know when I always said that I'm rubbish at maths, and you were like, no, you're not rubbish at maths. No, you're not. Right.
It was the instruction, or you just didn't have the right teaching style.
Then it's the limiting belief in myself in that subject area that's caused, and I'm now sitting here talking about becoming chair of finance.
Yo, look at that.
Look at that. Because at the end of the day, what I know for sure is that figures don't lie. They're exact.
Yeah, but at the same time,
you have income and you have expenditure.
Okay, you know what it is. And
everything is explained
I'll
anyway.
say with time, I will say, because as you say, it's been 3 years that I've sat on the finance committee. And with time, I have realized, I don't know if I'm just having this epiphany or moment now, but I have, upon reflection, I have realized that it's not as bad as people make out. Because I actually find the finance meetings really interesting, because it shows, I think I chose a very good pair of committees to be on, because education is all about teaching and learning. So that's why I say the weight of the conversation I had with you after I put myself forward was like, whoa, there's actually some serious importance here. But then it's also the finance. It's like, that's how you're able to know whether you can get anything done.
Exactly.
And so you learn so much about upper pay scales. I'm seeing UPS everywhere in a different context.
Yeah, it's an awesome term. Pay reviews.
But it's not just delivery. It's talking about, salaries and things. It's talking about the mobility of staff.
Deficit budget.
Exactly.
gag funding.
Yeah, capital spend.
Like, there's terminology that you hear in one environment that you hear in a different one, but it means something completely different. And also, when there's projects going on and they have to go through a tendering process, what I love about finance is the fact that because I don't work in a corporate, I don't have a 9-to-5 job, as it were, it exposes me to things that you would probably see in those kind of settings where you've got budgets assigned to departments.
Yeah, maybe.
And, if you want to do this project, then it's knowing how much is it going to cost you and, getting quotes from different organizations. I don't have to do all of that. It's just me that I have to consider in the stuff that I do professionally. So it's like, wow, everything. And I think also, for anyone, what's really important, I know we've gone off the topic of vice chair, but it all hangs together. Is that when you are outside of the school, you do not hold a school governor position of any level. It's so easy to think that money's coming into the school.
Millions
whatever the amount is, money's coming into the school. So why isn't the school doing anything?
Yeah, why can't they? I've got this service.
But when you sit around those tables and really digest
how the budget is carved up,
things like that, exactly. So
and restricted and unrestricted funds.
There you go.
All of those. Yeah.
And that's why I say, like, becoming a school governor is very insightful to things that you would usually have no sight of. But it just widens your knowledge and your scope. But also not just coming in and being a governor and sitting at that table, but leaning in, taking up a position, doing something. So I would almost say, this is probably leading into the takeaways, for the people who know that they or have been serving as a school governor for a couple of years, for a term or two, ask yourself, what have I done in the time that I've been there? Or what am I going to do in the next 12 months? Because every academic year, you want to see if you've changed, just like the students are changing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So you want to ask yourself, is it now my time to nominate myself as? And even if there isn't a vice chair position for committee chair, say chair of the LGB is a bit too scary at the moment, then see if you can have a conversation with the chair of that committee. Because I've had a new governor ask to have a conversation with me just to kind of know what the committee's about before she attends her first meeting. So, you can do that because that's all aligned with your own succession planning. And then you could probably speak to the clerk and find out how you go about nominating yourself.
Yeah, and there's training out there as well. Build your knowledge that way. That would be my takeaway, is build your knowledge, whether you're vice chair now or whatever position, whether you're a governor just coming in or you've been in for, 2, 3, 4 terms. Go back to training. There's lots of training out there that you can get, whether it's on-demand training or as part of a subscription service that your school subscribes to. But do something.
Yeah, something.
That's it for me. I get really frustrated being around people who
don't move.
Clearly are not, I call it breathing.
They're not breathing.
They're just stagnant in the space. I don't understand it. And I find that very, very frustrating and limiting. And, I was briefly a governor in a school that was very stale, and I just could not. I think I lasted 2 meetings and then I was like, I gotta go. So yeah, do something.
And if you do see yourself in a leadership position, whether it's vice chair or chair, but the opportunity doesn't exist in your current setting, then move setting.
Just give notice.
There are opportunities out there.
You don't have to wait till the end of
your
term.
Don't let that environment limit you.
Absolutely.
That's probably the way to finish. Yeah. Don't let the environment you're currently in limit you. That would be
well said.
Yeah.
Thank Thanks for listening to today's episode. Please rate, review, and subscribe via your preferred streaming platform. The Governor's Podcast is a brand of the legal entity Education Governance Solutions Limited and a free training resource for anyone. So if you know someone who is interested in becoming a governor or a trustee, please share this podcast with them. And if you'd like to get in touch with us directly with questions or comments, then drop us an email at thegovernorspodcast@gmail.com.
You can also follow us on social media platforms at The Governor's Podcast. Let's connect.